Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. This is Dr. Makemba. We invite you to engage us once again on this platform as we continue with our Wonders of Wisdom series. Today we are yet looking at very interesting subject matter. We will be talking about identity. We will define identity and then we will look at some aspects of identity and the dangers of lack of identity. Let's start off by defining what identity is. Identity is simply a state of being who or what you are. That is basically what identity is. In other words, when you have discovered who you are, what you stand for, where you are headed in life, and what you want to achieve with your life, then you have basically addressed the question of identity. Now, it's very interesting for us to note that without identity, you will probably not amount to much. And oftentimes, individuals that lack identity, they behave like a chameleon. You know, a chameleon by nature has a way of blending in, especially when it's, having, that danger approaching, or it's in an environment where it feels threatened. It tends to change its color to blend in with the environment so that the danger could be avoided. Now, individuals that lack identity behave the same way. The only difference is that they are not protecting themselves from any way when they behave like a chameleon. What do I mean by that? If you lack identity, for instance, let's say it's a young man or a young lady that lacks identity, you will tend to be pressured to fit in with every group that you find yourself in at any given circumstances. Let's say you are a young man, perhaps you went out and then you are in a group of individuals that, they drink alcohol excessively for that matter. If you do not have your own identity as to who you are and what you stand for you to find validation, you are likely going to spend time drinking just as much with the kind of group that you find yourself with on that particular day. You end up getting drunk. Then, of course, tomorrow you are perhaps in a group of individuals that, do things differently. Maybe they love sport. They go and play soccer, for fun. You probably go and play soccer with this group. Why? Because you are now trying to identify with this group. And that will probably give you validation to fit in that group at that particular time. Let's say, for instance, you're a young lady. You find yourself in the group of what they normally now call these days slay queens. You probably will be slaying to fit in that group and find validation. And then let's say another day you find yourself in the group of more matured women that carry themselves out in a particular way. You will then try to carry yourself out in a more matured manner to fit in that group and find validation. Now, the danger is you will always be sending mixed messages across when you conduct yourself like that in the context that you lack identity. People will not be able to place you exactly. People won't know exactly what you stand for. And when you have no identity, it's very difficult for you to, attract any support system in helping you achieve your vision, because people around you don't know what to support, because there's no clear identity as to who this person is and what they stand for. Now, it's also very important, especially in the context of leadership. If you are a leader and you lack identity, you are a dangerous leader. First and foremost, to yourself and to your subject, meaning the people you are trying to lead. Leaders that lack identity will say one thing and do another. Today they would stand for this, and tomorrow the very same thing they stood for 3 days ago, they no longer stand for. So they are always evolving in a manner that They are trying to please everybody. And as a leader, you cannot please everybody. You need to have an identity. You need to stand for something. Now remember, if you do not stand for anything, you will fall for everything. And that will not get you any far. You can't be influential when you don't have identity. You cannot transform society when you lack identity. Nobody will take you serious when you lack identity. It's very important that we, address the question of who am I? Why am I on earth? What do I stand for? How do I then go about accomplishing, and fulfilling my mission on this earth? A lot of people go through life without asking these difficult questions. They're just blown away by every wind of doctrine. Anything that comes their way, they just jump on the wagon and ride along. They don't even know where the wagon is headed to. That is because they lack identity. Now, the painful thing is that when you lack identity, you probably would not be able to identify what is not part of your life. Everything just goes. But when you have identity and you know who you are, it's very easy. Because your identity will dictate to you as to what direction your life should go into. And when that happens, it's very easy to say no to what does not identify with your identity. Especially as young people. We need to define who we are very early in our lives. Because then it gives us a, beautiful journey of life. You are able to make decisions that will impact you 20, 30 years from now on. But if you do the right thing now, because you know who you are, what you stand for, and you have your own identity, guess what? 30 years from now on, you won't look back on your life with regrets and saying to yourself, I wish I knew this when I was a little bit younger. Life is simply put and it's categorized in about 4 different stages. All right? The first 30 years of our lives, from the time we are born to the time we become 30 years, normally those are our learning years. Those are the time that we are trying to identify who we are. We make a lot of mistakes as we are trying to figure out who we are and what we stand for. So take time and learn as much as you can. Now, from 31 up to 60, that is your achieving years. This is a time of your life where everything you have learned in your first 30 years is now supposed to build you up. You are supposed to establish yourself, put it to practice, let it produce result for you. Let it help you achieve that which you desire to achieve with your life. From 61, the next 30 years, all the way to 90, those are your legacy years. This is a time where you have now entered into a mentor stage of your life. You are now grooming the younger ones. You are passing on the baton. You are building a legacy. Then, of course, beyond 90, that's your departing years. You are just waiting to die, basically. Now, these 4 categories that I've just highlighted to you can and only be realized if we have an identity. Because without identity, you will be in your achieving years, behaving like you're in your learning years. And you will be in your legacy years when you're supposed to be passing on the legacy, trying to achieve. And then you will be in your departing years, trying to build a legacy. That would be very painful because it would be a mismatch. You would have missed the boat. Now, I want to speak strongly, especially to young people. Now, every revolutionary, every breakthrough, every significant breakthrough in any endeavor of human history that has been documented, by far has the heart of young people at its very existence. But today we live in a world where young people have no identity. They are defined by their friends, they are defined by the television set, they are defined by the favorite actors they see on the television, they are defined by the reality TV show they are watching. They are defined by everything else except themselves. They want to be the Kim Kardashians of Africa because they've been watching Kim Kardashian on the reality show. But half of the time, there's nothing even real about those reality shows. It's all staged. Yet, these are the things that are bombarding us young people, our minds every day. And we are living in this very noisy world and we are trying to find our identity. And we are looking at everything else to define us that has no capacity to define us. And in the process, we become a generation that has no identity. And the danger with a generation that has no identity is a generation that lacks principles. A generation that has no value systems. A generation that has no vision, a generation that is not attempting to build anything. And guess what that will happen, what that will do to us? It simply is going to create a society that is disorganized, disoriented, dysfunctional. And that society eventually will make up a nation that is disorganized, dysfunctional, with no proper concept of direction as to where they are headed with their lives. And guess what? It will create problems for us. We need to find out who we are. The greatest discovery that you and I can make is to discover who we are. When you know who you are, nobody can come and define you. You will stand by your own identity. And you will walk and conduct your life in a manner that is lining up with that identity. And that's how you build yourself up. That's how you become a person of influence. That's how you become a leader. That's how you create a stable life. Basically, everything stands and falls on what your identity is. And if you lack identity, you have no foundation to build on. I just want to urge you today that, sit down, take time. Look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, who am I really? What do I stand for? What do I represent? Don't just, be taken by every wind of doctrine that comes your way. Don't just flow with everything that comes your way. It's not worth it. And remember, the clock will not stand for you, to wait for you to identify yourself and to discover yourself. You are fighting against time, and time waits for no man. Time is always moving. And remember, you will not be young forever. The worst thing that can happen to a human being is to come to the end of their life at their deathbed and discovered they have never even lived. It will be so painful because you will be looking at all your years of life that you have wasted, and you wish you could just go back and do it all over again. But unfortunately, when that time comes, you will not be afforded the opportunity. So the time is now. The time is now to ask yourself the tough questions, to discover who you are, to discover what you stand for, and to begin rearranging your life along those value systems that you have set out for yourself. I just want to leave you with these scriptures I'm about to go off there. In the book of Acts chapter 17 and verse 28, it says that in him we live, move, and have our being. Even as some of your poet has written saying that we are also his offsprings. Basically, that scripture is just telling us that in Christ we live, move, and have our beings. Have you perhaps considered that there's a good chance and a possibility that your identity indeed is hidden in Christ? Why don't you go on your knees in your own private space, in your own home, and ask Christ to identify you and to identify your identity to you? That could be a breaking point, and it can turn your life around and lead you into a different direction. This is your brother, Dr. Makemba, saying, go out there, define who you are, establish your identity, and start building your life along those lines. Till we meet again, ta-ta.